guys, welcome back. We are now going on to part 2 of the book Bird. I'm not doing a Nearpod this time. I am actually going to just read it for you. And then we'll still have our discussions. So Marcus stopped drawing a few years ago. That was around the time he stopped going to school, and that made our folks real upset. Sometimes Marcus would walk me to school, then he'd go hang out in the park. I'd ask if I could hang out with him and his friends, but Marcus said no. It's not too late for you, Marcus would tell me. Stay in school and make Mama proud. If I complained or talked back, Marcus would get tough with me. Do what I say, not what I do, he would snarl like a fierce pit bull. Marcus could be scary sometimes, but then he'd smile a little, so I'd know we were cool if I'd go to school, and Marcus would leave. So, I want you to think about, because you can't talk with a partner being at home, so I want you to think about the interaction between the brothers. And write on here what you think it reveals about their relationship and how Marcus feels about his brother. Think about that. Whenever I finished one of my drawings, I'd show it to Marcus. He would tell me whether I was getting better or not, and he'd show me ways to fix my mistakes. One time, I knocked on his bedroom door, but Marcus didn't say, "Come in." The door was a little bit open, so I pushed it, just enough to let my head inside. Marcus was curled on his bed, shaking and sweating. I asked him what was wrong. Marcus mumbled something about needing a fix. "Don't tell Mama," he whispered. This is a little dark picture. I didn't know how to fix Marcus, so I left my drawing on the floor and went back to my room. The only people I ever saw shaking and sweating like that were the crazy people in the park. Mama called them addicts. Granddad called them junkies. Papa said to stay away from them because people like that would do just about anything to get more drugs. I stared at the eraser on the end of my pencil. Then I drew a picture of me and Marcus up on the roof. Marcus was better the next day, but after that night, he started to come home less and less. One Sunday when I got home from church, all of our stuff was gone. Our TV, our stereo, the microwave, my video games, and all Mama's jewelry. I thought we'd been robbed, but Papa didn't call the police. Mama sat down at the kitchen table and put her hand over her face. Granddad called a locksmith. Later that night, Papa told me that if Marcus came by, I wasn't allowed to let him in. That didn't make sense to me, because Marcus is family and he lives here too. But Papa said that Marcus was sick, and until he got better, Marcus couldn't come around anymore. I asked Papa if what Marcus had was catching. Papa looked at me for a moment, then he shook his head and held me long and tight. So it looks like Marcus robbed the house. It wasn't an actual robber. I try really hard to obey my parents, but sometimes I break the rules. A few weeks after we changed the locks, I heard a knock at the door. Mama and Papa were still at work, and Granddad was listening to his radio. I didn't take the chain off, but I opened the door and peeked outside. Marcus was standing there in the hallway. He didn't look so good. I figured he was still sick, but Marcus said he was feeling a lot better. He told me that he'd be coming home soon. I wanted to take the chain off the door and let my brother inside. but Marcus said he couldn't stay. He just came by to give me something. He pulled a bag out of his jacket and handed it to me. Inside was a book about birds. I asked Marcus to wait a minute. Then I ran to my room and took my best drawing off the wall. I raced back to the door and slipped it to Marcus. "This is the best one yet," he said with a smile. Marcus carefully folded my drawing and put it inside the jacket. Then he went away. I asked Granddad what it would take to fix Marcus. Granddad pressed his lips together and thought for a long time. Then he put his arm around my shoulder and said, Some broken things can't be fixed, Bird." Later, I went to my room and drew a picture of Marcus the way he used to be before he got sick, back when he was my big brother and not some junkie we had to lock out of our home. I pinned my drawing on the wall and stared at it until my eyes filled up with hot, angry tears. Marcus's face became a blur. I threw my pencil at the wall and it snapped in half. The next day, I taped my pencil back together, but Marcus never got better. So I want you to think about what emotions is Bird dealing with now. And let's discuss, think about it, and then I want you to type in or send me a message. Talk about whether he's doing a good job of coping with his feelings. Think about what he did whenever he got angry. Is that a good idea? Is that a good way to deal with them? After the funeral, Granddad went to bed and stayed there for a real long time. Mama said his heart was troubling him, but Granddad said his bones were just tired. That was about the time Uncle Son started to look out for me. Now we go to the park together every week. Thanks to the book Marcus gave me, I can name pretty much any bird I see. Uncle Son likes the mallard duck best because it's got a shiny green head like a soldier wearing a helmet. I like the cardinal because it's bright red with a pointy crest. When it flies, the cardinal looks like a fiery spark blowing through the trees. There's the mallard down there, the green. In the wintertime, it's easy to see the blue jays playing tag in the branches. Uncle Son knows a lot about flying. He told me that birds aren't light because of their feathers, but because they have hollow bones. Uncle Son said things that live in the sky are fragile. We only think that they're strong. I wish I could have fixed Marcus, I told Uncle Son. He just turned his lips upside down and slowly shook his head. You can fix a broken wing with a splint, and a bird can fly again, he said, but you can't fix a broken soul. Then Uncle Son told me a story his Nana told him when he was just a boy. There was a time, he said, when our people could fly. Back when there were still whips and chains, folks held on just as long as they could. But when the body broke, the spirit went free and carried the poor soul home to Africa. Is Marcus in heaven or in Africa? I asked. Uncle Son said Marcus was at peace. Granddad passed away 2 months after Marcus. Uncle Son said he thought Granddad went to heaven to keep his eye on Marcus. That made sense to me. The next time Uncle Son and I went to the park, I looked up to the sky instead of the trees. The sun was going down. It looked like a pink and silver blanket. It was about to cover the whole world. Heaven's that space high above the clouds where everything is calm and still, right? Still, right? I asked. Uncle's son nodded and smiled at me. When I got home, I drew a picture so I wouldn't forget. So, do you think, I want you to think about this one too. Do you think any of the characters in the book could have done more to help Marcus? And if you do or don't, tell me about that. Tell me why or why not. And I want you to think about the ways birds are mentioned in the book. What role do they play as symbols in the story? And what do you think kept birds safe from the feelings and behaviors that trapped Marcus? These are good questions to really think about. And I want you to tell me whether you agree with Uncle Son's comment that you can't fix a broken soul. Okay, well, that is our book for the last 2 days. I hope you guys all enjoyed. Make sure you comment with your answers. I will see you guys later. Bye-bye.